"Excuse me, sir, this is a private pool. You need to leave." The woman's voice was loud and firm. She stood by the edge of the pool, her hands on her hips, looking down at the man sitting in the water. Her sunglasses reflected the bright California sun, and her lips were pressed in a tight line. Keanu Reeves, the famous actor, looked up at her, raising an eyebrow. He had just finished swimming and was resting at the side of the pool. It was a peaceful afternoon at his home in Beverly Hills, and he had been enjoying the quiet. But now he was being told to leave his own property. That was unexpected. It was a hot summer day in 2023. After working on movies back-to-back, Keanu had finally taken a break. His beautiful, private home was his escape from the flashing cameras and noisy city life. He loved simple things like reading, playing with his dog, and of course swimming in his pool. But today something strange was happening. The woman standing there had never been here before. She was dressed in expensive clothes, and she looked like she belonged to a world of fancy parties and rich people. But right now, she was glaring at Keanu as if he was an intruder. "I don't know who you think you are, but only people who live here can use this pool," she said sharply. Her voice was filled with confidence, as if she was sure she was doing the right thing. Keanu was still half submerged in the water. He tilted his head, confused. Who was this woman? Was she a new neighbor? Maybe a guest of one of his staff members? He decided to be polite. "I live here," he said simply. The woman let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, sure you do. And I'm the Queen of England. I'm calling security." She pulled out her phone and started dialing. Keanu blinked, trying not to laugh. This was a new experience. Over the years, people had mistaken him for all sorts of things. A struggling artist, a traveler, even homeless when he dressed too casually. But never before had someone looked him in the eye in his own home and told him to leave. Before he could say anything else, a police officer walked onto the patio. His uniform was neat and his badge gleamed in the sunlight. He had been patrolling the neighborhood when he heard the commotion. The woman's face lit up when she saw him. "Oh, thank goodness, officer. This man won't leave. I think he's trespassing." The officer looked at the woman, then at Keanu. There was a long moment of silence. Then the officer smiled. "Ma'am, do you know who this is?" he asked calmly. The woman scoffed. "Some random guy sneaking into a celebrity's house?" The officer's smile widened. "This is Keanu Reeves. He owns this house. And fun fact, he's also an honorary police chief in this district." The woman's confident expression disappeared. Her face turned pale and her hands tightened around her phone. "Wait, what?" Keanu finally stood up, water dripping from his hair. He grabbed a towel from a nearby chair and wrapped it around his shoulders. He looked at the woman with a calm expression. "Would you like a towel?" he asked. The woman opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked around, hoping someone would tell her this was all a joke. But no one did. The only sounds were the gentle splashes of water and the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Keanu sighed softly. "Why did you think I didn't belong here?" The woman swallowed hard. I thought I was helping. You hear about break-ins in rich neighborhoods all the time. I didn't mean anything bad." Keanu nodded slowly. He could have been angry. He could have embarrassed her. But that wasn't who he was. Instead, he gestured toward a chair. "Why don't you sit down?" She hesitated, clearly unsure. "Sit." Keanu nodded again. "Yeah, let's talk." The woman looked at the officer, who simply watched, amused. Slowly, she walked to the chair and sat down at the very edge, looking uncomfortable. Keanu took a seat beside her, rubbing his towel over his damp hair. The sun was lower in the sky now, casting a golden light across the pool. "So what do you do?" he asked. The woman shifted in her seat. "I'm a real estate agent." Keanu chuckled. "Figures." The woman narrowed her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" Keanu shrugged. "Just that you seem good at making snap judgments." She huffed, crossing her arms. "I get it. I messed up. You don't have to keep reminding me." "I'm not," Keanu said gently. "I just want to understand." The woman looked down at her hands. "Understand what?" Keanu studied her for a moment. "Why did you look at me and assume I didn't belong?" The police officer, realizing this was no longer a legal matter, gave Keanu a respectful nod and stepped away. This conversation wasn't about the law, it was about something deeper. The woman let out a shaky breath. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just saw you and for a second I thought." She hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. You want the truth? You looked like my ex-husband." Keanu's expression softened. That he had not expected. Her voice was quieter now, no longer firm and commanding. "He was a liar. A A con artist. You stole from me, cheated, ruined my life. And when I saw you sitting there, so calm and relaxed, I don't know, something in me just snapped. Keanu listened carefully, nodding slowly. He could hear the pain in her voice. She wasn't just being rude, she was carrying something heavy. The sky was turning orange and pink as the sun lowered. The water in the pool sparkled under the fading light. I see, Keanu finally said. That must have been really hard for you. The woman nodded, looking down. It was. There was a long silence between them. Then Keanu spoke again. You know, not everyone who looks like him will hurt you. She looked up at him, blinking. I know. But it's hard. Keanu nodded. Healing takes time. The woman let out a slow breath. Yeah. Keanu smiled gently. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here. She hesitated, then smiled just a little. Thanks. The world felt a little quieter, a little softer. And maybe, just maybe, something had changed for the better. Karen had jumped to conclusions, thinking something bad before knowing the truth. It wasn't just a small mistake, it was something deeper. Keanu leaned forward a little. Karen, he said softly, I'm not your ex-husband. Karen let out a small laugh and ran her fingers through her hair. Yeah, I know. They sat quietly. The water in the pool moved gently as the sun started to set. After a moment, Karen looked at Keanu again, this time with calmer eyes. I'm sorry. Keanu gave a small nod. That was his way of saying he forgave her. She hesitated, then asked, Why are you being so nice? Most people would have kicked me out. Keanu smiled a little. I've been through worse. Karen looked at him, trying to understand what he meant. She felt like there was something sad behind his words, but before she could ask, Keanu stood up and stretched. Do you swim? He asked. Karen frowned. What? He pointed at the pool. Do you know how to swim? Karen hesitated, looking at the water. Then, with a small smile, she shook her head. Not since I was a kid. Keanu smiled. Maybe it's time to change that. And with that, he walked toward the pool and jumped in. Karen sat there watching him, her thoughts all mixed up. This day had not gone the way she expected, but she wasn't upset about it. Something about Keanu was different. She had been ready for him to be mean, but he had only been kind. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling a little uneasy. She wasn't used to men like him, calm, patient, understanding. She thought about leaving, running away from the awkwardness. But she didn't. Keanu swam smoothly through the water like it was the easiest thing in the world. He looked up at her. You're still here. Karen blinked, shaking off her thoughts. Yeah, I guess I am. He leaned on the edge of the pool, watching her with amusement. You should try it. She laughed and shook her head. No thanks. I think I've embarrassed myself enough today. Keanu tilted his head. Have you ever heard the story about the woman who was afraid of the ocean? Karen crossed her arms. What story? Keanu smiled. She was scared of deep water, so she stayed away from it her whole life. One day she met an old sailor. He asked why she was so afraid. She said she didn't trust what she couldn't see. So the sailor told her something she never forgot. Karen raised an eyebrow. And what was that? Keanu's eyes softened. He said, You don't have to see what's below to trust that you can float. Something inside Karen felt warm and strange, but she didn't know why. They sat in silence as the sky turned gold and purple. Keanu swam to the center of the pool and floated on his back. You don't have to be afraid of something just because it's new, he said quietly. Karen bit her lip. Was he still talking about water? Or something else? Without thinking, she took off her sandals and stepped closer. The tiles were cold under her feet. The water moved gently, waiting for her. Keanu turned his head slightly. There's room for one more. Karen hesitated. Her heart beat faster. Then, before she could stop herself, she took a step. Her foot touched the water. It was colder than she expected, making her shiver. But she didn't step back. She didn't know it yet, but this was the moment everything changed. Slowly, she walked in deeper. The water swirled around her waist. She took a shaky breath. The day's events still weighed on her, but Keanu's calmness made it easier to keep going. Keanu floated easily and turned his head toward her. A small smile appeared on his lips. You're doing better than most. Karen let out a nervous laugh. I feel silly. Why? She sighed, looking at the water. Because I spent the last hour acting like you were a bad guy. And now I'm in your pool like I belong here. Keanu's face didn't change. Maybe you do. Her eyes snapped up to his. He sounded so sure, so calm that it made her heart feel tight. I don't, she said quickly. I was wrong about you. I judged too fast. I shouldn't even be here. Keanu swam closer. Small ripples moved toward her. Then why are you still here? Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. She didn't know the answer. Or maybe she did but was too scared to say it. Keanu watched her, then leaned back and floated again. Have you ever noticed how some people spend their whole lives running? Karen frowned. Running from what? He closed his eyes, his arms spread out. Themselves. Karen's chest tightened. She swallowed hard and looked away. I'm not running. But even she didn't believe it. Keanu let the quiet settle before speaking again. I used to run, he said softly. For years. Karen looked at him in surprise. You? He nodded. After my best friend died. Then my daughter. Then her mother. I thought if I kept moving, if I kept working, I wouldn't have to feel any of it. Karen's breath caught. She had heard about the sad things that had happened to him. But hearing him say it, seeing the way his face softened with pain, made it feel real. I'm sorry, she whispered. Keanu opened his eyes and met her gaze. You don't have to be. Life happens. Pain happens. He paused, then added, what matters is whether you let it keep you locked out of the world. The night was settling in now, the sky darker, the stars beginning to shine. The water reflected their glow, tiny ripples making the lights dance. Karen wrapped her arms around herself, unsure of what to say. Do you ever miss them? She asked quietly. Keanu nodded. Every day. But I learned that missing someone doesn't mean stopping your own life. It just means carrying them with you. Karen thought about that. Maybe she had been carrying things too. Fear, regret, things she didn't know how to let go of. She looked down at the water, her reflection shimmering beneath the surface. Maybe you're right, she said softly. Keanu gave her a small smile, then dipped beneath the water, disappearing for a moment before resurfacing. He shook the water from his hair. You're already in the pool, Karen? You might as well swim. She hesitated, then took a deep breath and let herself float. The water held her up, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself feel weightless. She didn't know what would happen next, but for now, she wasn't running. Karen swallowed hard. She felt strange inside because of what Keanu said. His words made something deep inside her feel different, like an old wound had been touched. Keanu watched her closely, his dark eyes gentle but searching. What happened to you, Karen? She stiffened. What do you mean? He hesitated as if carefully picking the right words. I mean, why did you look at me today and think I was a bad person? Why did you assume the worst? Karen's jaw tightened. I told you. You remind me of someone. Keanu nodded, waiting. He didn't push her to say more, but somehow, that made it even harder to stay silent. Karen sighed and looked up at the sky. The sun was setting, painting the clouds in soft orange and pink. She didn't know why she was about to tell him this. Maybe it was the quiet. Maybe it was the way Keanu listened without interrupting or judging her. Maybe she was just tired of carrying it all alone. But suddenly, the words spilled out before she could stop them. My ex-husband, she said softly. He was charming. Too charming. He always knew exactly what to say to make people trust him. She let out a bitter laugh. Then one day I found out everything was a lie. The money, the life, the future I thought we had, it was all fake. He took everything and disappeared. Keanu didn't say anything. He just let her talk. Karen wrapped her arms around herself. Since then, I don't trust people easily. And when I saw you today, She shook her head. I thought the worst. Keanu nodded slowly as if understanding more than just her words. They sat in silence, the water surrounding them, their pasts heavy between them like a weight neither of them could see but both could feel. Finally, Keanu spoke, his voice calm. Not everyone is like him, Karen. She let out a shaky breath. I know. Keanu tilted his head slightly. Do you? Karen looked away, her fingers gripping the edge of the pool. I want to. Silence stretched between them again, but this time it felt different. Lighter. As if something had shifted between them, something neither of them had expected. Keanu gave a small smile. Well, you're in the water now. Karen let out a quiet laugh, the tension in her shoulders loosening just a little. Yeah, I guess I am. You trusted it, Keanu pointed out. She exhaled slowly. Yeah. Keanu's gaze softened. Maybe that's a start. And for the first time in a long time, Karen thought maybe he was right. The water held them in a quiet embrace, filled with unspoken words, with pasts that still hurt, and with the possibility of something new. Karen hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected to be here. She hadn't expected to open up to a man she had thought was a stranger just hours ago. But there was something about Keanu. The way he listened without trying to fix things. The way he made her feel safe without even trying. It made it hard to walk away. Keanu moved through the water so easily, like he belonged there. He was never in a hurry. He seemed like someone who had learned long ago that life moved fast enough, and there was no need to chase it. Karen, on the other hand, had spent her life running. Running from her past, from her mistakes, from the aching loneliness that came from trusting the wrong person. But now she was standing in a stranger's pool, feeling safer than she had in years. Keanu floated on his back, his voice breaking the silence again. You know the best thing about water? Karen raised an eyebrow. What? It holds you up even when you don't think you can stay afloat. She let out a small laugh. You really like this idea, huh? He turned his head toward her and smiled. It's a good one. She rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling back. For the first time in a long time, she felt something shift in her chest. Something lighter. Something that almost felt like hope. Keanu swam to the edge of the pool and pulled himself out. Water dripped from his strong frame. He grabbed a towel, ruffled it through his dark hair, and looked at her. Are you staying in there all night, or are you coming out? Karen hesitated, then swam toward the steps and climbed out. As soon as she did, Keanu tossed her a towel. She caught it clumsily and wrapped it around herself. They sat by the pool in silence for a moment. The air was warm even though the sun was setting. Karen found herself stealing glances at him, watching how relaxed he looked, like being at peace was easy for him. Like it was just part of who he was. She cleared her throat. Are you always this nice? Keanu smirked. Depends on who you ask. I mean it, she said. You had every reason to be mad at me today. He shrugged. Being mad wouldn't have changed anything. Karen frowned, looking down at her hands. I don't think I've met many people like you. Keanu watched her carefully. Maybe it's time you did. Her breath caught at that. His words felt like an invitation. She wasn't sure what to say. She wasn't even sure what she was feeling. Only that she didn't want to leave yet. Keanu leaned back on his hands and looked at the sky. You hungry? Karen blinked at the sudden change in conversation. What? Hungry, he repeated. Because I make a mean grilled cheese. She stared at him, then let out an unexpected laugh. Grilled cheese? He grinned. And tomato soup. Best combo in the world. She shook her head, still smiling. That's a bold statement. Keanu stood up and held out his hand. Guess you'll have to find out. She hesitated for just a second before placing her hand in his. His grip was warm and steady. And as they walked inside together, Karen realized something. She wasn't running anymore. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.